What is up, everybody? The History Guy here. About a month or so ago, I started playing Hearts of Iron 4 with the Black Ice mod, playing as the nation of Japan, which is a nation I've never played as on a playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 before. Now, my daughter, in all her infinite wisdom, she's 14 years old. She has a YouTube channel of her own, has about 52,000 subscribers on her channel, doing really, really well. Went in and deleted everything from our documents folder on our computer, thinking she was clearing up some space on the hard drive. Usually I back up my games to the cloud to avoid anything like that happening, but with that series I had not done so. Rather than go back and try to recreate what I did, honestly I made some mistakes early anyway that I feel I can correct now. I thought I would just go ahead and start from scratch, from the beginning. My apologies to those of you who followed those first two episodes. These are now saved to the cloud. Shouldn't be an issue again. And we're going to play this probably about once every 3 days or so. I want to get on a regular rotation with this game so you kind of know when to expect it. Won't be done as often as some of my other series, but I know there is a big following on this channel for Hearts of Iron 4. And you're looking forward to that. In the meantime, we can kind of also talk through a little bit of the history of what was going on in Japan at that time. Now listen, I know my name on this channel is the History Guy. I also know there are other channels with that name, so you don't have to remind me of that. A lot of you are big fans of the History Guy. History deserves to be remembered. I am as well. He has a great channel. Mine did exist before his. He's got way more subscribers than I do, so it's easy to think that I kind of ripped off the name. I did not. It's a common enough name. There's actually about 8 channels with the name that I'm aware of, most of which are older than his and mine. But that said, just because I have a degree in history does not mean I know everything about every bit of history. So some of you are experts in areas that I am not an expert. I know a lot, probably more than just about everybody, when it comes to things like the American Civil War, British medieval history, World War II as far as the theater of Europe and the Atlantic goes. I don't know as much about naval history. I don't know a lot about the history of Japan. You know, these are things I'm going to learn as best I can, but some of you know way more about this than I do. Please use the comment section below to offer your thoughts and to fill in the gaps where I maybe have missed some things that matter. Just a real quick overview as best I understand it as we dive into January of 1936 as Japan and we start to create our own history. Japan, like most of the world, was in a depression as 1930 rolled around. And so with that economic depression comes a lot of political upheaval. And there was a lot of that happening in Japan, especially kind of with the military kind of pushing against the political. So in March of 1931, there's a failed military coup in Japan. Later on that year is kind of when Japan sets their eyes on Manchuria, and they occupy Manchuria. And because of that, by 1932, and actually into 33, the League of Nations criticizes, League of Nations kind of the forerunner to the United Nations, criticizes Japan for their occupation of Manchuria, and so Japan leaves the League of Nations. There was also another failed military coup in the fall of 1931. There was an assassination of former finance minister in 1932. There's a puppet state established in Manchuria in 32. The prime minister, Tsuyoshi Inukai, I believe is his name. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. He's assassinated by Navy officers in May of 1932. Things get quiet for a little while, and then you get into 1936, and there's again another military coup attempt. They occupy Tokyo for a few days. The emperor gets the military to put down the rebellion, but at that point the military effectively takes political control of the country. And so that's kind of where we are. We're right around that time. So thinking ahead of what I'm planning to do, obviously as Japan I need to have a strong navy, but what I don't have is nearly enough steel to be able to build a strong navy. That's where China comes in. China's got a lot of steel. There's a lot up in here. There's a lot down here as well. So those are places I'm unfortunately going to have to go after. As much as I would like to try and stay and build up, I can't build up without those things. So in order to have a strong navy, I've got to build up my army enough to be able to take some of these regions. I'm going to do what I can to build up my own steel industry here in Japan, but there's a limited amount of that I can actually do. Now, Black Ice has a ton more options as far as what we choose to do, and I haven't taken all the time to kind of think through all the way down on some of these things, but I do know that right off the bat, I do want to focus at least a little bit on my industry and my kind of infrastructure. So Manchurian Project, 35 days, going to give me a boost to stability, a boost to war support, a nice little bump in political power that I can use right off the bat to make some decisions. We're going to go right at basic machine tools, get kind of our basic industry options going as far as research goes. We do have atomic research, and we're going to want to have nukes to keep up with things, so we'll have one thread going with that. National focuses are going to allow me to open up some additional technology threads pretty early in the game, so I will go after those as quickly as I can. I am going to focus a little bit on building up my Navy technology research, just because it takes so long to build those ships that the earlier I can research them, the better off I'll be. Let's get a good look at a 3D image of this Yamato class super heavy battleship. Oh yeah, she's beautiful. Let's take a look at that right there. So we're definitely going to start researching that right away. It's going to require a lot of resources. Everything else as far as Navy goes is down in 1939, so we'd be hurting ourselves to do that right now. I am going to work on Navy doctrine a little bit so we can build that up. So that's where we're at with that. I'm not going to start trading for steel right away, which is obviously going to hurt my ability to produce things, but I'd rather invest my available civilian factories in building up my existing steel mills and my existing civilian factories. So first things first, we're going to build a few additional civilian factories. We've got some national focuses that are going to allow me to get some of those as well, but we're going to build up a few of those. It's going to take the better part of a year to get those first ones going. Actually, you know what? Because I've got other ways of getting those, I'm rethinking that, and I'm thinking I might just go right for steel mills instead. So steel mills, each one gives me a +6 to steel, so that's helpful, and also gives me some aluminum. So those things are going to help. So we'll start queuing up some of those. They don't take quite as long. April 1936, we'll get our first one. And as far as outdated equipment goes, I think that's an airplane, yep. So we're not going to worry too much about building up the planes because they'll be obsolete by the time I really need them anyway. Basic training, I'm just going to work on a Hohei. Again, probably pronouncing that wrong, and I apologize to those of you who know how to pronounce these things better. I believe that's the word for infantry. So we're going to get some infantry divisions going. I took Chinese as a kid, but not really familiar at all with any Japanese, unfortunately. I'll go ahead and build up my armies and kind of organize those a little bit off camera as we get started. And I think for now we will just work on something like uniforms and pre-war infantry equipment, just so we're producing some things. And then I'll build those up, and I think we're good otherwise. So let's go ahead and dive in. League of Nations. There we go. Oh, we got an air base that's too large in the Marshall Islands. We'll deal with that. So we completed Manchurian Project, and so now we're going to go to expand the Showa Steelworks. That's going to give me a civilian factory and a steel mill. So those are the little things that doing early in the game are going to pay off a lot bigger for me as we move along. After that, we can expand the railways, and then we can look at adding civilian factories, adding military factories. And then we've got to think about what comes next. And there's a big decision to make about what direction we go with the country. Do we strengthen the civilian government, which is going to give me this bonus research slot, and eventually I can go down to do something like even going toward democracy, which I really don't want to do. That wouldn't make for a very fun game, I don't think. We can purge the Kadoa faction, which is going to give us these options. What I'm really looking at is what it's going to give me down the road. I like these options here, adding these military factories, adding these civilian factories. Just looking ahead to all that might be here. Right here, going down this middle road, it gives us some options as well. And that's where we can go to a preemptive war against the Soviets, which I'm not inclined to do. We've got a non-aggression pact with China or Sino-Japanese war experiences. We've got Axis leanings over there. Over here, we've got kind of a focus on French Indochina, which would be, like Vietnam. So a lot to think about as far as which way I go. What I don't think I'm going to do is go strengthen the civilian government. I think I'll go with one of these other routes. I just don't know which one yet. So I'm still thinking about that. We can go here, which is going to add some military factories, civilian factories. We're going to get this added research slot. So maybe over here is where we go. We've got spiritual mobilization as well, which looks like it offers some really promising options. There's a really nice one there. 3 civilian factories and a steel mill. So yeah, I think that's where we'll go next. Well, Germany is doing her thing. She's remilitarized the Rhineland, and I shouldn't say she, because they're obviously known as the fatherland. So Germany is doing that in violation of the Treaty of Versailles, but obviously nobody's going to do anything about it. So we're into March of 1936. And I've basically organized my army into kind of 3 theaters just to kind of keep things clear for me. I've got the Japanese theater, which is basically kind of the homeland units, and they're basically garrisoned on the main Japanese island, plus down here into Okinawa and Taiwan. And we also got the Korean Peninsula Force, and then we've got what I'm going to call the Chinese Invasion Force, which will be my main force for invading China when the time comes. Okay, so we've got the February 26th incident. I believe this is the military coup I alluded to that basically was put down but ended up giving control of the government to the military. So now we've got to make a decision about that. A group of young military officers attempted a coup d'etat. The radical Kodoha faction in the military assassinated several prominent politicians but failed to assassinate the prime minister. The coup failed, and unlike in the aftermath of the previous attempted coup, the surviving perpetrators were given secret trials and shot. Change in the popularity of absolute monarchy, 35%. If I support the coup, if we purge them, fascism goes up 10%, and we remove the national spirit, and we add some infrastructure. Boy. I guess we're probably going down the route of fascism anyway. So let's do that. We've got 86 political power at the moment. I don't know exactly what that allows us to do as far as key changes go, but I'm sure there are some things that I can do. I wonder if, well, we can only go average taxes. Let's see the difference here. Political power gain, weekly stability, production efficiency. Doing this will actually help to speed up civilian factory production. So we're going to go ahead and make that change. That'll allow me to do that a little faster. We also have some decisions we can make here. Military parade, Air Force War Games, that'll give some experience, not a big deal right now. I don't think there's anything I really want to do as far as these decisions go. So another decision I'm going to make here, we've got one right here where under inter-service rivalry I can hit prioritize steel for guns, and that's going to give me 4 additional military factories. Now, of course, the issue is I don't have the steel anyway to produce those things. So those are just some of the things I can look at. I think I'm actually going to save my political PowerPoints for bigger decisions that can be made that will affect things a little more right now. Looking at construction, I went ahead and started working on a civilian factory since I've got that bonus to the how quickly I can produce a civilian factory. I thought it would be a good time to go ahead and key one of those up. I also am working on expanding Manchurian railways, which is going to open up light industry development, which will allow me to build 2 more civilian factories, and then we can get 2 more military factories. And then I actually think we'll hold off on these building slots because we don't need them yet. I've still got plenty of building slots available. We're going to head over here to spiritual mobilization at that point. We're into May of 1936, almost June. Not a lot happening on the world stage at the moment. I'm looking at an option here for using some of my political power, and foreign investors are currently banned, and you can see the effects that that has. And one of the things I'm looking at is the hit that I take to the construction speed on military and civilian factories. Switching this helps that a little bit. It reduces my political power gain, but it also reduces my stability a little bit, but it really kind of helps everything else: research, factory output, civilian and military construction speed. So the benefits for me right now outweigh the negatives. So we're going to go with that. Spanish Civil War has erupted right on time, and so we'll see kind of how all that shakes out. We'll see what countries get involved and turn that into kind of a proxy war. Expecting the Soviets, the Germans will do that. That generates a certain amount of world tension. Not a whole lot, though. It looks like Germany sent a couple of volunteer divisions, but that doesn't really affect us in any way, shape, or form right now. Lots of decisions available. Again, political power still going up. Just completed a civilian factory, and now we're working back on steel once again. Looks like I've got to assign those. There we go. So we'll get our first new infantry divisions into the field here very, very soon, and then we'll start getting more going again. And I might want to actually do some training, get their experience up. That's certainly going to hurt things as far as my production of resources goes, but we'll go ahead and get the training going with all of our different forces, but especially that Chinese invasion force. And heavy industry development is, you know what, not worried about the military factories just yet because I don't have those resources anyway. So we're going to continue focusing on civilian factory upgrades. Decision to make. The Five Ministers Conference was a meeting between 5 important Japanese ministers in which they laid out plans for Japanese expansion. It was decided to expand southwards into China and other parts of Asia. The Soviet Union was not ignored, however, and a part of this plan was also to build a large enough army to be able to defeat the Soviet Union. Yeah, good luck with that. Foreign Minister Arida generally approved of the plan, but stressed the importance of maintaining the goodwill of the United Kingdom and the United States. Prime Minister Hirota agreed with the plan and decided to let the Army or Navy draw up the detailed plan. One's going to give me a factory input or output increase versus dockyard. I think we're definitely going to go Army for now. And that's kind of where our focus needs to be. I was also looking at selecting an economics minister, and I'm looking at the benefits to each one of those. Right here is a construction speed bonus for military factories and some of these other types of factories I'm going to need later on. But right now I feel like this one's the way to go because of the bonus to civilian factory construction speed. Yeah, I think that's what we'll go with. And it's not going to let me. Okay. Because we're not democratic, obviously. All right. Always got to look at those things first. What about a political advisor? Political power gain bonus, weekly stability bonus. Wow. What is our stability? It's 61%, which isn't bad. But I wouldn't mind it being better. That kind of helps everything across the board. All right. Looks like we've got ourselves a super heavy battleship to start building. Now, I really don't have the steel for it, and I've got other ships that I'm currently working on. But now we've got a few things as far as naval technologies go that we can work on. Interwar, in air. We'll start working on that. Let's go ahead over to our production. We do have a number of ships that are currently still under production, and obviously without the steel, it isn't producing them very quickly. But I do want to go ahead and at least get this queued up and look at how much it's going to take to build that bad boy. So the ultimate symbol of naval power, these massive, heavily armored behemoths still command respect on the high seas, even as some experts question their role in the age of the airplane and the submarine. Fair point, fair point. Let's get one going, and more as we require. So we're into October 1936. I was actually waiting on getting 125 political points, and it looks like we've got it. All right, the Anti-Comintern Pact. I really don't want to go crazy with opposing the Soviets, but I do kind of need the friendship of the Germans. So one thing that's hurting my production or my construction speed on these factories, if you look at it here, is high investment. So I want to go over to the decisions, and I want to look at that. That's it's down here somewhere. There we go. So high investment in education policy. If I go to low investment, it's going to give me a bonus on my political power gain. It's going to hurt my stability, but that's not a huge deal. I've got other sources of building the stability up. So let's go ahead and do that. That's going to get me constructing things a little faster. Currently, what is my overall kind of stability gain? It looks like we're kind of around even. Tanaka, Shizuki, gosh, these names, I'm sorry. I apologize if I'm messing them up. That one's hurting me a lot, though, so we probably need to look at that as a change at some point. Where is he? Right here. We're going to need to make that change. You can see the hit that I take to stability because of that. There's other options that would do better for me, but we'll get there. There's imperial austerity, and with that, a nice bonus option available to me. I can now add this one, which is going to give me a steel mill and 3 civilian factories, which is huge. So in 70 days we'll get that. That'll be a real nice bonus. As we get into 1937, though, we've got to start thinking about expansion. I haven't done nearly enough to build my army up, and I certainly am going to need more of an air force to do that. So, but I've got to start thinking about switching from focusing on just building up my industry to actually building up my army. Looks like we're getting some army experience points going. Let's see where we're at on research. Oh, it's over here. So we've got a couple of things that don't really affect me a whole lot right now. Dispersed industry will be a nice bonus. Mechanical computing. I think after a couple of these complete, and we've got several that are going to be done in about a month, I'm going to start focusing on upgrading my military, especially tanks and also infantry weapons. All right, so into January 1937, we've got a decision to make here. Manchukuo has sent a representative to discuss about the matter of the Menjiang's transfer. We can agree or say no way. You know what? Go ahead, you can have it. I don't think that really changes anything for me personally. I still kind of have my army where it's at. I'm just watching the supply issue. I'm trying to space out my army because the supply going through these different territories has been an issue. There's the big purge in the Soviet Union, and we've completed our carrier task force research. We're going to continue going down that path. We're 2 days away from mechanical computing being completed, dispersed industry as well. And let's see. Yeah, we're going to continue getting these research bonuses for those things. And also, I'm working on a national focus right now that's going to give me another research slot. That should be available in a few days. And no, we don't need any more hits to stability right now. Dispersed industry 2 will go. And we are working on our first tanks. Atomic research will be done in about 5 months. We'll go as far as we can into 1937 before we wrap up this first episode, because I am anxious to get all of your thoughts. Maybe some of you who have played through as Japan before and have a better understanding of what I should probably be expecting and planning for. But I am going to start building up my armored forces here pretty soon and try to prepare for a blitzkrieg style attack as best I can into China. Though with this kind of mountainous terrain here, I feel like it's going to be a bit of a challenge to break through there. Alright. Yeah, construction speed bonuses. I think that's the way to go there. So I made my decision. I'm going to go with the Purge the Kadoa faction, and it feels like this is probably the most historic route that I could go. It does eventually lead to Strike the USA, which I don't know if I'll do that or not, but it seems like the way to go. Although there are a lot of things to like in here as well. There's a London Naval Treaty possibility, and I kind of like that a lot, but I just don't know if that limits me a little too much. Ah, boy, I don't know. All right. That's a decision to make. You know what? I'm going to stop right there because I would love to get your input. These are the two options I'm thinking about, and that's what I'm going to do next. Should I purge? Should I go down this route? Or should I go this route, which gives me a lot more options as far as going in an ahistoric route? I could certainly do things like a non-aggression pact with China, which I'm not inclined to do because I need their resources. I could prepare for war with the Soviets. I can join the London Naval Treaty. I can eventually go down this route for a preemptive war with the Soviets. It seems like that kind of leads to a war with the Soviets. I'm not entirely sure that that makes it as possible to fight the Americans. So let me know your thoughts on that. We're going to wrap it up right there. It's a short first episode, but I always like to kind of get off the ground and then get people's thoughts on the direction you'd like to see this go. So we're going to do this every 3 days, and I'll try to come up with a regular schedule and let you know in advance when that's going to be. I want to try and get in kind of a rhythm as far as the things that I'm doing are concerned. So use that comment section below. Let me know your thoughts. And please hit a like, please subscribe, and hit that little bell if you haven't already to get notified whenever something new happens. I am back to being active on Discord as well, so I'll put the link in the description below for the Discord server. Those of you who are patrons on Patreon, I'm going to try and make sure that I get all that updated. It seems like the Patreon bot is not assigning the roles like it's supposed to, so I'm going to go in and manually do that just to make sure those are all caught up. All right, we'll see you later. Thanks for watching.